In just 83 days, the people of Boise are going to decide who's going to be the next mayor of the city of Trees. Now, within this window of like 90 days or so, campaigns, this is when they usually ramp up for their final stretch run at that office. Today, we're going to take a look at the top two contenders in this race. That'd be incumbent Mayor Lauren McLean and retired Boise Police Chief Mike Masterson. We're going to look at how they stack up when it comes to campaign finances. So this is where Joe Paris does some math.
There are a few different windows into the campaign finances of the candidates that want to lead Idaho's most populated city. We'll circle back to all of this after the election, but for now, the fundraising presents an interesting story. Less than 90 days until decision day in the Boise mayoral race, and already close to $400,000 has been raised for two top candidates, Mayor Lauren McLean and challenger Mike Masterson. Tracking back to January 1st of this year, Mayor Lauren McLean has raised $263,308 from 626 individual donors. In the same time frame, Mike Masterson has raised $152,081 from 390 individual donors. So from January 1st to the beginning of this year, McLean has seen more financial support in terms of dollar amount and individual donors. But it is important to note that McLean has been in the race, at least officially, longer than Masterson. She received her first contribution the first week of the year, while Masterson's donation started rolling in on March 24th, a day after his paperwork to run for office was finalized. So let's take a look at that window first. For March 24th until now, the McLean campaign has raised $165,663 from 428 donors. In the same time frame, Masterson raised $152,081 from 390 donors. Masterson officially launched his campaign with an event on May 23rd, about 2 months after his first donation was submitted. So from May 23rd until now, there is a slightly different story than the previous windows. Since May 23rd, Masterson has raised $108,080 from 268 different donors. McLean has raised $79,880 from 212 donors during the same stretch. Masterson takes the lead in that specific window. Overall, since the beginning of the year, the McLean and Masterson campaigns have raised a total of $416,389 from 1,016 donors, with still several weeks to go.
So those numbers will continue to update. So if you go check our math as soon as tomorrow, you might see that there's even more donations coming in. But 53,303 people in Boise voted in the last mayoral race. Remember 2019, what a different time. You need to remember, though, combined between the two campaigns, only 1,000 people have donated since the beginning of this year. So no matter how much you donate, you only get one vote. Of note, though, McLean raised $244,150 in her 2019 race against Dave Beater. She's outraised herself already with still about 90 days to go. But Brian, we will be interested, I should say, to be tracking this to the final months of the race and financially to see if it makes a difference. A note for you, of course, people are capped at $1,000 per candidate as a maximum donation in the city races here in Idaho. It'll be interesting to see over the next 90 days if there's a lot of movement in this or if this is kind of going to stay set. And if you're curious what the campaigns are really spending money on, a lot of it communications, strategy, PR. If you look into some of their spending, a lot of it is trying to position the campaign to figure out what they're going to do over the next few weeks.
What should this, or why should this matter to the regular Joe this far out from the race? Like how much money people are donating and who is doing that?
I think it's interesting because it shows how many people are actually donating and how many people are actually voting. And when you talk about the people that are giving money and the direction they hope that the city goes compared to people that are just voting on election day, it's one of these things where we can put a stick in the mud and come back to this in several months and say, okay, well, they raised this much and it worked out to being worth $100 per vote or $250 per vote. When we looked back to the Beater-McLean stuff, and that also included a runoff back in 2019. It was interesting to see that even though the Beater campaign had really out-fundraised McLean during the general cycle, once they got into that runoff, which was just final two candidates, McLean actually was out-raising Beater. So it was interesting to kind of see the differences there, and I'll be interesting to compare and contrast
and
this race and that
where
one.
it's coming from matters.
Yes, it does. And this is actually very cool. The state of Idaho, they have this sunshine report, which is basically putting sunshine on all the information, all the documents that used to be harder to access before high-speed technology. So we actually have a link to this story that we'll have on our website in a little bit. And you can go through the Boise mayoral race, you can go through legislative races, you can go through all these state races to figure out how much money candidates are raising and really what they're spending it on as well. It's very comprehensive. It is not just unique to the Boise race. If there's something going on in your neighborhood, maybe a mayoral race, you can check the same portal online.
Thanks, Joe. We will be checking back. I appreciate it. All right. Well,